At this time, may we all rise for the national anthem.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians old and proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace all battle honored, and this we count as gain. To hand unto our children a banner without stain. O God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build our nation where no man is oppressed, and so with peace and plenty Nigeria may be blessed.
May we all be seated. To set the tone for this all-important meeting that is held, that is being viewed internationally, is the head of the technical unit on governance and anti-corruption reforms, Mrs. Jane Owomere. Mrs. Owomere, welcome to the podium. A round of applause.
This one. Good morning. The Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, the Executive Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Mr. Olanipekun Olukoyede, the Executive Secretary and Chief Executive Officer, Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, Dr. Oji Ogbonnaya Oji, the Chairman, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission, Mr. Musa Adamu Aliyu, SAN, the Statistician General of the Federation, Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, Prince Adeyemi Adeniran, Mr. Danilo Campisi, Deputy Country Representative, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, Dr. Emmanuel Uche, European Union IDEA Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Rollout 2 Program, Mrs. Mary Okpe, Center for Democracy and Development, Mr. Ashley Emenike of the GOPAC, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I must start first of all by apologizing for the late start. We are expecting to have in our midst today two honorable ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I've been asked to first start by letting you all know that we'll have in our midst today the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, who will be joining us shortly. He needed to attend to a court matter this morning, and he's gone there, but will be joining us in the next few minutes. We'll also have in our midst today the Honorable Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, His Excellency Senator Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, CON. But we will ensure we start, as we started immediately, we would ensure that we go through the process as quickly as possible. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the high-level seminar in commemoration of the African Anti-Corruption Day 2024. The 11th of July is designated as the African Union, by the African Union as the African Anti-Corruption Day to commemorate the adoption of the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption. This is the 8th in the series since the adoption of the convention in 2003. The African Anti-Corruption Day gives us an opportunity to reflect as a nation on our implementation of the convention and critically assess our achievements, progress, and challenges in the fight against corruption. It also helps us to raise awareness on the negative effects of corruption and jointly agree on ways to prevent and curb the scourge. The theme of this year's commemoration, Effective Whistleblowers Protection Mechanism, a critical tool in the fight against corruption, highlights the role of whistleblowers in promoting transparency and accountability and strengthening integrity of public institutions. The theme is drawn from findings following the reviews of member states' implementation of the convention. You may recall that last year marked 20 years of adoption of the convention, and that the African Anti-Corruption Day 2023 focused on implementation reviews. The review of implementation report reveals that one of the major challenges to the fight against corruption in the region is inadequate whistleblowing systems and mechanisms. Article 5 of the convention obligates state parties to adopt measures that ensure citizens report instances of corruption without fear or consequence of reprisals. The importance of whistleblowers in the fight against corruption cannot be overemphasized. They therefore need to be guaranteed adequate protection to report corruption without fear of retaliation. This is a crucial component of an effective anti-corruption strategy. The absence of a whistleblower protection law was also one among several other findings in the review of Nigeria's Convention Against Corruption. Incidentally, last year also marked 2 decades of implementation of the UNCAC, and the stock-taking exercise undertaken locally shows that while many of the recommendations have been addressed, the issue of absence of a whistleblower's protection law persists. Though the Whistleblowing Policy 2016 is being implemented pending the passage of the Whistleblowers Protection Law, there are concerns with the level of protection it affords and the need for better understanding of the legal and administrative frameworks of the policy, including the difficulties of navigating the bureaucratic processes for claiming the incentives. We therefore must meet our treaty obligation and strengthen our whistleblower protection regime by passing a law to that effect. I'm happy to note that the event today will feature the launch of the report of the 3rd corruption survey carried out by the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics in collaboration with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. The event will also feature 2 paper presentations. The first paper, titled Impact of Whistleblowing Policy on Public Sector Accountability and Transparency. This paper will be delivered by the Executive Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Mr. Ola Olukoyede. The second paper, titled Whistleblowers Protection Bill, Challenges and the Way Forward, will be delivered by Mr. Ashley Emenike, the Executive Director, Global Organization of Parliamentarians Against Corruption. The paper will focus on the Whistleblowers Protection Bill that was before the 9th National Assembly and provide updates on where we are and the way forward. We are definitely going to get answers and insights from the experts as we hold robust discussions on these topics. At this point, I would like to thank the heads of agencies present and for honoring our invitation. I also cannot conclude my remarks without extending our appreciation to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, the European Union IDEA Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption ROLAC 2 program, MacArthur Foundation, and the Center for Democracy and Development for their support to the fight against corruption in Nigeria, and specifically for supporting this event. Our thanks also goes to the Executive Secretary of the Executive Secretary of the AUABC, Mrs. Charity Hanena Nchimuya, who is joining us virtually at this event. Lastly, I would like to thank the management and staff of all the member agencies, the 21 member agencies of the IATT, for putting together time and resources to ensure that this event is a success. This shows the strength of interagency cooperation and collaboration. Finally, I thank all the participants, and in line with the theme of the day, I would like to reiterate the need to continue to foster partnerships and interagency cooperation as we strengthen our whistleblowers protection mechanisms. This lies at the center of our collective action to prevent and address corruption from the roots. I welcome you all and look forward to our very fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
And that was the head of the Technical Unit on Governance and Anti-Corruption Reforms, and I would say in Nigeria. I think she deserves a bigger round of applause. Putting this together, it's not easy. It's not tea party. My name is Frank Tete. I'm your privileged Master of Ceremonies, and I'll be your duty continuity announcer for the rest of the program. Hold me responsible if anything goes wrong, especially in pronouncing the names. However, at this time, let us welcome the Acting Director General of the Bureau of Public Procurement, Barrister Omotola Olusegun. We'll move on quickly, and I hope the technical unit, the communication unit is ready. We will be listening to a very brief remark by the from the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption. Are you ready? If you're not ready, we'll move on to the next item.
I'm ready.
Expectation. Great.
Hello.
Hello, you're welcome. So while we wait for you to clear your microphone, we again reenact the presence of the chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, Chief Barrister Victor Chinemere Muraku. I think Chief Muraku deserves a bigger round of applause. He's the only chief. He's the only chief on the service table. It's not easy for chiefs to come down to start serving Nigeria. You're welcome, Chief Muraku. So, Madam Charity Hanena, I'm sure you are connected at this time. Madam Charity will be delivering the remarks from the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption. I think she deserves a round of applause. We are very generous here in Nigeria. Great.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm not Madam Charity. I think due to the late delay in starting of the meeting, she had to join in another meeting. So she designated me. My name is Martha Mutali. I'm the Senior Policy Officer on Economics and Statistical Matters at the AUABC. So I'm just going to read her message of goodwill. I'm going to stand on the protocols that have already been observed since the start of the meeting. It's our great honor as AUABC to be attending this high-level seminar today as we commemorate the Africa Anti-Corruption Day, which started in 2017 when the African Union member states made a decision to be commemorating the adoption of the convention, the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption on 11 2017. As we assemble here, we do recognize that member states of the African Union have made various efforts and sacrifices that have been made by various individuals and organizations in pushing or in promoting the fight against corruption. And their work and resolve has also pushed us closer to being more transparent, responsible, and even in issues of equity in Africa. However, corruption remains a formidable challenge, and diverting precious resources away from the public services, such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure. As we all know about the Thabo Mbeki report, which highlighted the loss of $50 billion annually to corruption in the high-level panel on its financial flows, this amount could have transformed the lives of millions of Africans, and even if it's redirected to infrastructure, would have seen significant changes in the infrastructure development in Africa. And therefore, this figure really underscores the agency for African member states to really, and together with others, to put in measures that are going to promote the fight against corruption. And we therefore must resolve to move forward now more than ever to fight for a corruption-free continent, a corruption-free Africa. So in our resolve, we should be stronger than ever, and our unity should be the greatest strength. And therefore, AUABC stands ready to work in hand with all the partners. I'm glad here there's UNODC and others who we worked together in the past, and also national corruption agencies. I see ICPC, EFCC that are here, and even the private sector and other international partners, because when we work together, we are going to reap more benefits. And also by fostering a culture of integrity and transparency, we can create an environment where corruption will not thrive. So when the AU Convention was adopted in 2003, there were a number of countries that had ratified, but I'm happy to report today that we have 48 of our member states of African Union that have ratified the convention, including Nigeria, of course. And we have seen significant developments in the past years through the country reviews that the AUABC conducts within Africa, Union member states, especially the state parties. We have seen the establishment of various legal frameworks, institutions, as well as other comprehensive anti-corruption programs, as well as in the area of investigation and prosecution of high-level corruption cases. But however, this has not been enough. As it was already said by Madam Jane, that last year we were celebrating 20 years since the adoption of the convention. And when we did our study, our reviews, we did find out that the role of whistleblowers is very critical. If no one reports corruption, corruption is not going to be exposed. And therefore, these heroes must be elevated. And that is why 2024, the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption is running with this theme. So today on the African Corruption Day, we are commemorating the whistleblowers on this theme of effective whistleblower protection mechanisms. As already said, Article 5 of the Convention has mandated state parties to put in measures, because most people fail to report or to expose or to blow the whistle because they fear the repercussions that are going to get after reporting. And that the AUABC is committed to provide technical assistance and capacity building, as well as policy guidance in the area of whistleblowing. We'll be in this year started developing a harmonized policy and a legal framework of guidelines on whistleblower protection mechanism. Through the research that we are doing, we'll also be able to share with you the results that we have done. Already preliminary results are showing that not many of the African countries have whistleblower protection mechanisms, and even budgetary support to national corruption authorities to even protect the witnesses and whistleblowers. And therefore, we are ready as AUABC, as African Union, to work with member states in ensuring that mechanisms are put in place to protect our whistleblowers. I've also heard from here that there will be a launching of National Corruption Survey. We are happy with this, and we support the efforts of Nigeria, and we hope we will get the report so that we can be able also to share with the other member states. They can learn on the efforts that Nigeria has put in place in combating corruption. So as we commemorate this day, I want all of us to join hands to ensure that in whatever corner that we are, as institutions, as individuals, as citizens, we are promoting the fight against corruption. Thank you so much, and we wish all of us a very good high-level seminar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam, for that message. And one of the partners to this program, and I'm talking about no other person than the country director of the MacArthur Foundation, Dr. Kole Shetima, just joined us. Dr. Shetima, would you please come over to the service table? Dr. Shetima, we know you are a comrade. Once a comrade, always a comrade. A round of applause for Dr. Shetima. It's not usual for them to, they usually prefer the self-effacing personality. But Dr. Shetima, this is your day, please. You worked very hard in the anti-corruption arena. Today is the African Union Anti-Corruption Day. Dr. Shetima, you're welcome. We will be recognizing a number of us that have also joined us. And
I was here at the very beginning.
yes. And the Director of Proceeds of Crime Act at the Code of Conduct Bureau, Mr. Ifeanyi Okorocha, is here with us. Could you just please indicate wherever you are? Great. Mr. Okorocha is a very fine man. A round of applause for him. And we move on quickly to start taking goodwill messages. The Interagency Tax Team, together with the Technical Unit on Governance and Anti-Corruption Reforms, have put this together, and I'm working strictly by the instructions of the program. And at this time, each goodwill message will take just 2 minutes, and it will be led by no other person than the Leonard Silk himself, the chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, Dr. Musa Adamu Aliyu. Leonard Silk, you're welcome to take your goodwill message. And most Leonard Silk, there's an appeal that it stays within 2 minutes.
Good morning. Always, I don't know why the MC missed the correct name. All the protocol duly observed. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this great occasion. And I want to thank all of us for what we have been doing here. And what I want to say is that the issue of whistleblowing is very key in the fight against corruption. Because as we know that corruption, like conspiracy, is always being done in secrecy. And now we need people to come over and disclose this thing, but these people need protection, which the framework need to be proper on ground. And I like to say that another important thing that all of us, we need to work together, because no single agency or person can fight corruption anywhere in the world. And once we are united, people will have confidence in coming to us, in giving us information, once they know that they will have protection with the information they have given to us. And I would like to use this opportunity to appeal to the National Assembly to pass the bill that is currently pending before the August body, at least so that people will have protection and that will give them confidence to come over. Otherwise, we'll continue to have challenge, the challenge which will now discourage people to come over. Although I know that the ICPC Act and EFCC Act have a window of protection given to the informants or whistleblowers, but they are not enough. We need a robust Act of National Assembly that will protect these people that are risking their life to come over and disclose issues pertaining to corruption in our country. So I thank you and wish all of us fruitful discussion in this occasion. Thank you.
This is the fitting time for the chairman of the EFCC to deliver his goodwill message. However, he has a massive dose to deliver in course of the lead paper presentation. So we will be skipping the time of the EFCC chairman. And that also applies to all the other members of the service table who have significant roles to play in course of the program. And that includes the Statistician General, the representative of the UNODC, and Mr. Ashley Emenike. So it is proper at this time to invite the Honorable Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Extractive Transparency Initiative, Dr. Oji Ogbonaya Oji, to deliver his goodwill message. A round of applause. A massive round of applause. Dr. Oji. All right.
Bye.
Dr. Oji, I'm sure you are attending the national. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Dr. G wants a broadcaster, always a broadcaster. So, you know the importance of time. The team insists on 2 minutes. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Fellow heads of agencies here present, members of the diplomatic or our development partners, invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's with honor and profound sense of duty that I bring you greetings from the board, management, and staff of the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. We are here to align with our fellow heads of agencies, anti-corruption agencies, and related organizations, especially the technical unit on governance and anti-corruption, to align and celebrate this year's commemoration of the African Union on Anti-Corruption, which is a day set aside to mark the efforts and identify the gaps in the ongoing fight against corruption in the region. This year's theme, effective whistleblowing protection mechanism, a critical tool in the fight against corruption, aligns with the goals, mandates, mission, and vision of the Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. At NAITI, we recognize that whistleblowing are key elements in the quest for transparency and accountability. And over the years, NAITI has led strong advocacy in the ongoing reforms of the extractive industry to ensure that revenues from oil, gas, and mining are available to provide roads, water, electricity, security, access to jobs, and improve quality of life, poverty reduction for our citizens. However, effective whistleblowing is contingent on existence of protection mechanism, which whistleblowers require to effectively utilize the information at their disposal as tools to push the boundaries of transparency and accountability. To this end, NAITI has consistently advocated for comprehensive development of legal framework and policies within the extractive sector and beyond to guarantee safety and protection for whistleblowers. We produce industry reports annually, and these reports are full of information and data, which are very key in the fight against corruption. And this information and data are tools which whistleblowers, working closely with the civil society and the media, can use to table issues of public debate required to advance and deepening reforms that will require to bring the desired impact. Additionally, NIT is currently discussing with the National Human Rights Commission with a view to signing a memorandum to deepen and expand civic space to enable whistleblowers and civil society actors to participate not just in data generation, but in data analysis and use them as tools to deepen and broaden, push the boundaries of the fight against corruption. In 2023, NIT received EITI standards and participated actively in the process. The 2023 EITI standard has thematic areas that are focused basically on anti-corruption for member countries. The new provisions enhance opportunities for countries to use the EITI reports and platforms to identify and address corruption risks in natural resource governance. Companies, multi-stakeholder groups, and other reporting companies are required to publish anti-corruption policies and engage in rigorous reforms based on due diligence. Anti-corruption policies provide the needed safety for whistleblowers as laid-down mechanisms are provided within the policies to ensure safety and accountability within the sector. I conclude by assuring that we collectively collaborate and will continue to collaborate with all anti-corruption agencies, civil society organizations, and international development partners to establish relevant protocols that will ensure protection of whistleblowers, provide legal and psychological support, enforce strict penalties for actors and any act of reprisals. These efforts are crucial in creating an environment where transparency can thrive and corruption systematically dismantled. We commemorate this day with a call on stakeholders, governments, civil society, private sector entities, international community, to help renew and strengthen the commitment to protecting those who courageously expose corruption. Because in transparency, everyone gains. Let us work together to strengthen our whistleblowing culture and incentivize whistleblowers once more, believe government and participate actively and positively in government programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oji Obunayachi, the Executive Secretary and the Chief Executive Officer of NAITI. Before we take a few more goodwill messages from the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, the Bureau of Public Procurement, ROLAC, and CDD, may I, with privilege, recognize the following persons. Now, as lawyers working in the media and civil society, we know the huge work of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and those who are actually making it happen, supporting the chairman, who are here among us, are duly recognized. And that includes Mr. Mike Unzekwe, the Chief of Staff to the EFCC chairman. Are you around, sir? A round of applause for him. That is also followed by Mr. Abdul Karim Chuko, who is the Director of Investigation. Mr. Abdul Karim, you're welcome. And the most familiar of them all, Mr. Wilson Uwadure, who is the Acting Director of Public Affairs. Mr. Uwadure, you're welcome. That is followed by Mr. Ahmed Pate, who is the Director of Finance and Accounts. We also have Silvanus Dahi, a Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who is the Director of Legal and Prosecution. And the last but not the least, Mr. Tony Idoko, who is the Special Senior Assistant to the EFCC Chairman. Gentlemen, you're welcome, and the country recognizes the great sacrifices and the great work that you're doing. Next in the line of goodwill messages, may we at this time respectfully request Chief Barrister Victor Chinemere Muraco, who is the chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission to deliver the goodwill message. You know, Dr. Oji has a lot of privileges. You may restrict to 2 minutes and improve on him, on his record, I would say.
Thank you. Good morning. Various heads of agencies, particularly members of TUGA and IA, TT, invited guests, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm particularly delighted to be here on this occasion to commemorate the 2024 African Anti-Corruption Day. We at Fiscal Responsibility Commission are very happy with the theme of this 8th edition on effective whistleblowing mechanism, a critical tool for fighting corruption. It's quite apt because despite the various strides made by African countries and Nigeria in particular in the fight against corruption, and while acknowledging quite a number of the efforts and achievements made in this, it's important that we point out that as we speak, there's no Whistleblower Protection Act in one form or the other in a lot of our country. We don't have anyone in Nigeria as we speak. The policies we have, which we'll try to enthrone, if you ask me, need to be strengthened and passed into law so that we can have a framework. The lack of proper implementation, as well as non-existence of such legislative instruments, has greatly reduced the intended impact of the interventions of potential whistleblowers. It is imperative that we come together as a continent and Nigeria as a nation to strengthen the support for whistleblowers because they are at various risks. We can do this by putting in place strong, effective structures and framework. I want to use this opportunity to commend the IATT team with support from local and international organizations in putting together this event today. I also commend the donor partners that are equally involved in today's event. Events such as this will keep reminding us of our obligations to continue to ensure that if we cannot kill corruption, we must reduce it to the barest minimum. Fiscal Responsibility Commission is a member of IATT. We are committed in entrenching the ethos of good governance and citizens' participation by ensuring that there is a safe space for exposing and curbing corrupt practices. We have done a lot in preventing corruption. We may not be frontally in fighting, but I think prevention of corruption is a lot cheaper and faster. Though our country has a whistleblower policy in place, as stakeholders, this is the time for us to come together to ensure that the whistleblowers bill is passed by the parliament. Let me use this opportunity once again to congratulate UNODC and National Bureau of Statistics for producing the 3rd National Corruption Survey in Nigeria, which will be launched today, which will also provide an assessment how well Nigeria has done in anti-corruption reforms. We look forward to the content of the survey as it will pave the way for further policies in the anti-corruption drive. Transparency and accountability is critical for us in FRC, and we'll continue to partner with EFCC, ICPC, and other agencies that are involved in TUGA. We'll continue to give our support because we owe it to our nation. God bless Nigeria. God bless us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Morago, for that goodwill message. Actually, the tax team is very concerned about keeping to time. And because the chairman of the ICPC has set a good example, please, let's clap for him so that others will follow that example. The ICPC chairman came and stood by the 2-minute line. At this time, please, let us welcome Dr. Kole Shetima, the country director of MacArthur Foundation, to deliver his goodwill message. Dr. Shetima.
My understanding was that I was going to be in another thing, not goodwill message, but various heads of agencies here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, here for two main reasons. One is the fact that the MacArthur Foundation funded the NODC survey. So I'm very happy here to see the outcome of that survey. They haven't told me what it is, but I hope that all of us will be very happy about it. Secondly, of course, today, Africa Day, is a day that all of us who are committed to improving the quality of lives of our citizens come together to celebrate the Anti-Corruption Day. So I'm very happy that we have been able to support the commemoration of this important event as well. I'm also very happy to see so many distinguished guests, head of various agencies who are here, and of course, all of you out there who are doing the real work. Organizations like MacArthur, what we know is we try to support people, but we cannot do our work unless those of you in the audience who are doing the good work are there. So thank you very much, all of you who are here this morning. Thank you very much, all those who have joined online, for all the good that you do in order to make our country better for humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think I believe it's there. I was supposed to call the acting Director General of the Bureau of Public Procurement, Barrister Motola Olusegun, to give his goodwill message. After that, we'll have two more goodwill messages from RULAC and the Center for Democracy and Development before we move on to the high points of the meeting. Barrister Olusegun, it's your time. A round of applause.
Good morning, all. Permit me to stand on the existing protocol. Let me again use this opportunity to congratulate the organizers of this event. You are really doing a good work. I am confident that at the end of this session, we'll all have something to take home for the purpose of improving the, for the purpose of protecting whistleblowers. We will all agree that corruption has been a big problem in this nation, and successive administration have put in place one policy or the other in order to address corruption. One of which is the encouragement of whistleblowers. On the part of BPP, that's the Bureau of Public Procurement, we have been able to synergize with other anti-corruption agencies. I'm going to mention 2 or 3 areas in which we have been able to do that, and I believe we have been making some good impact. But before then, I want to, mention one or, let me just say a few areas in which, we need to protect whistleblowers in order to serve as encouragement. The issue of lack of legal framework cannot be overflogged. It cannot be overemphasized. but we need to mention the fact that from a lawyer's angle, all we have at the moment is a policy, and a policy without being coded, into a law is just like a toothless bulldog. You cannot really implement this. It's just like persuasive in strength. So I would want to encourage that the bill at the National Assembly be given all the force that it needs in order to become codified. So I want to encourage also that a way of protecting whistleblowers generally is by encouraging multiple reporting channels to enable effective, whistleblowing. Then confidentiality, there's need to protect whistleblowers to encourage them to continue to expose illegalities, wrongdoings in all our agencies. Now, quickly, because of time, I want to make it known to us this morning that at the Bureau of Public Procurement, we have a portal whereby whistleblowers can secretly drop their information. And it is info@bpp.gov.ng. Then again, we receive feedback on our NOCOPO platform where contractors are registered. So on this platform, we could have complaints which will lead to, audit, surveillance on our part. Also, we do carry out surveillance, and in order to ensure that complaints, issues of corruption, procurement corruption are investigated. And the law says, particularly Section 53 of our Act, gives us the power to forward to ICPC, EFCC, who are partnering with us in the fight against corruption, all these complaints of corruption in order for them to investigate. So also, if you have complaint as a whistleblower, you see any wrongdoing in the agencies, particularly as it relates to procurement, you can write an anonymous letter to the DG, and you can be sure that that will be investigated. And if we have prima facie case established against you, we forward the complaint to the relevant law enforcement agencies who are partnering with us. So on this note, because of time, I believe that at the end of this session, we will have, a robust set of, suggestions which can be implemented for the purpose of protecting whistleblowers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Olusegun, for that goodwill message. As Acting Director General of BPP, you know the cost of procurement in terms of 1 extra minute of time, 1.5 million, and you spend 2.5 minutes extra. At this time, permit me please to welcome for the delivery of our goodwill message on behalf of the Center for Democracy, Mrs. Mary Okwe, who is the head of programs at the Center for Democracy. A round of applause. I thought a woman would deserve a bigger round of applause. Come on.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I stand on existing protocols and I bring you warm greetings from the Center for Democracy and Development. Today, we gather to honor the the courage and integrity of those who expose hidden injustice. They make valuable contributions to our societies. We hardly celebrate them, even though they bear great risk. We also today are reminded of the significant challenges that corruption poses to democracy, democratic processes, sustainable development, and growth in Africa. It undermines institutions, it reduces economic progress, and by strengthening the frameworks that creates enabling environment for whistleblowers, we are contributing in very significant measures to bring the Africa that we all desire to be. For this reason, CDD plays a significant role in the fight against corruption. We do that by partnering with key anti-corruption agencies through programs and research efforts to enable effective and efficiencies of agencies who do this great work, such as TUGA, EFCC, ICPC, CCP, and others. We have supported in different ways by improvements of forensic capacities, trainings, and we have strengthened and led paths for making all of this possible in order to reduce crime related to corruption in Nigeria. This fight is a continuous journey. It requires unwavering commitment, innovative strategies, and together we can achieve the Africa we want to see. CDD remains steadfast in this commitment, and we are hopeful, we are positive, and we are sure that if we do this fight collectively, Africa will become the Africa that we need to see without corruption, with a good example of democracy. Thank you very much.
For the final goodwill message, and an all-important one for that matter, let's invite Dr. Emmanuel Uche, who is the program manager of the International IDEA, Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program. Dr. Uche, your goodwill message. A round of applause. Is it because it's Neyman this time?
Okay, good morning, comrades. Standing on existing protocols already established, I bring you very warm greetings from the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance worldwide. All we do is to strengthen the foundations of electoral democracy in countries around the world. And you will agree with me that democracy cannot be sustained if it does not deliver good dividend to the people. Delivering dividends to the people is dead on arrival where there is corruption pervasively. And therefore, it becomes clear that whistleblowers should actually be on the front line patriots. Whistleblowers are our front line patriots in a country like Nigeria. Protecting them is a sine qua non. We cannot but protect them, because without whistleblowers, the fight against corruption is dead on arrival. I don't just want to end this 2-minute speech by just giving goodwill, but to ask rhetorical questions that should bog our minds. How do we talk about strengthening the foundations of democracy and giving dividends to the people if at this age and time we continue to have official secret acts, oath of secrecy administered on every public servant? And even after passing an FOI that took over a decade to pass, we still have states that still don't believe that access to information is key for democratic development. I think it becomes important that FOI is mainstreamed. Number two, that we replace the oath of secrecy with the oath of accountability and integrity to move our nation forward. We assure you that International IDEA will continue to partner with every credible organization that means well for Nigeria, especially for strengthening the foundations of democracy through improved rule of law, improved anti-corruption efforts, improved access to justice. I wish us good luck and the Nigeria of our dreams. Thank you very much.
We're going to a very important aspect of today's program, and we're moving very fast. At this time, we're still expecting the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice to perform that role. However, we still have on the program the presentation or the launch of the third. It's not the actual launch, but the sort of presentation of the National Corruption Survey in Nigeria. And this has been a collaboration by many partners, together with the Center for Democracy, the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crimes, and the National Bureau of Statistics. I think at this time, with the privilege of being the announcer, I now have the duty to invite the Statistician General of the Federation and Chief Executive Officer of the National Bureau of Statistics, Prince Adeyemi Adeniro, on the subject of the presentation of the third National Corruption Survey in Nigeria. Now, coordinating these things can be quite tricky. SGF, you have the floor. However, it is in conjunction with your fellow representative of the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime. So he will also be speaking immediately after the SGF. Please, one round of applause for the SGF.
Your Excellency, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, which we are still expecting, the Chairman ICPC, Dr. Aliyu, the Chairman EFCC, Dr. Laolukoyede, Dr. Kunle Setima, thank you for providing the fund under MacArthur Foundation for us to have this third round of the survey. We hope to see you for the next round, providing funding again. The country rep of UNODC, Danilo Campisi, the head of TUGA, head of ROLAC, acting Director General, BBP, and other members of the high table, distinguished invited guests, directorate and staff of MBS, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I count it a great privilege to be here today for the official launch of the third survey of corruption report in Nigeria. The launch of this critical statistical output, which is also known as the National Survey on Quality and Integrity of Public Services in Nigeria, coincides with the celebration of the African Union Anti-Corruption Day 2024. Under the theme, Effective Whistleblowers Protection and Mechanism, a critical tool in the fight against corruption. Looking around and seeing the caliber of personalities and various organizations here present in this hall for this particular event, it is a great testament to our collective commitment to combating corruption and fostering transparency accountability, and good governance in our dear country using statistical data. For the benefit of those who may not know, this is the third round of the Nigerian Corruption Survey that we are launching today. The first round and second round were conducted in 2016 and 2019, respectively. This round of the survey, conducted by the National Bureau of Statistics and other relevant anti-corruption agencies that we have been mentioning here today, in collaboration with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes, with support from the MacArthur Foundation and the Kingdom of Denmark, marks a significant milestone in our collective ongoing efforts to combat corruption, which is in line with the government's 8-point agenda and commitment to transparency and good governance. Through these 3 surveys that we have conducted, Nigerians continue to lead in establishing international best practices in the periodic and scientific assessment of anti-corruption efforts. The survey provides a critical tool for evidence-based policy making, enabling a comprehensive analysis of corruption trends and the effectiveness of anti-corruption strategies. The survey is unique in the sense that it focuses on understanding the experience of corruption by Nigerians rather than just perceived corruption whenever they come in contact with any public officials. It is basically measuring petty types of corruption, that is small bribery that we encounter every day, rather than the grand corruption that we all know that runs into billions and trillions of naira. For each round of the survey, there is usually an improvement that will make the data more useful to government, to policymakers, and various other users. For this round, this third round, 2 new fighter modules were added, and that is the gender module and the disability module. They were introduced to the instrument deployed to give us a deeper understanding of the experience and impact of corruption on marginalized or typically vulnerable groups, such as women, youths, and persons with disabilities. We have also improved on the way we measure bribery refusals to align properly with the definition given in SDG 16.5.1. You are welcome, Your Excellency.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just witnessed the arrival of the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. Ladies, Senior Advocate Lateef Fagbemi, a round of applause for the Honorable AGF. Attorney General, you're welcome.
Your Excellency, the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, you are welcome. I'm just giving goodwill message leading to the launch of the third round of corruption survey in Nigeria. Thank you for the support we have gotten so far, Your Excellency. In addition, as this was the third wave of the survey following the 2016 and 2019 rounds, we were presented with an opportunity to conduct a trend analysis of corruption experienced by households in the country. The relevance of this corruption survey is underscored by several insights provided in the report, which show that we have recorded some significant positive improvements, while we still need to do more work in other areas. The 2023 results showed that about 70% of citizens that were asked to pay bribes refused to do so. This is a good sign that the awareness and advocacy campaign strategies of anti-corruption agencies are really working in Nigeria. Also, there is a notable increase in the rate of bribery reporting, rising from 3.6% in 2019 to 8.6% in 2023. This is reflecting the growing awareness and willingness among Nigerians to confront corruption and the positive impact of the effort of anti-corruption agencies in raising awareness and getting Nigerians to report any incidents. The slogan that police is your friend is beginning to manifest. Of the total number of bribery cases reported in this round of the survey, 65% of the cases were reported to the police, compared to 42% that we experienced that were recorded in 2019. Not only the police that recorded improvement in this area, 28% were reported to anti-corruption agencies when we compare it to just 8% in 2019. The results also reveal a significant increase in the level of actions taken as a consequence of reporting. Out of the total cases reported by citizens, in 45% of the cases, a formal procedure was initiated against the officer. This is an increase from 16% in 2019, and this shows a huge commitment to dealing with cases of infraction in the country. Despite these achievements, however, the prevalence and patterns of bribery in the country still remain significant, with 34% of citizens either paying or being asked to pay a bribe and refused when they encounter public officials. As we present these findings, I wish to state clearly that the purpose of this survey, and indeed any other statistical activities undertaken by the National Bureau of Statistics, is never to castigate or point finger at any individual or any institution, but rather to present statistical evidence that can aid in taking the necessary steps to improve the quality of public service available to Nigerians while enhancing the trust in the relationship between the citizens and the public offices. On this note, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me acknowledge the collective efforts and contributions of all partners and stakeholders that are involved in this exercise. All the anti-corruption agencies that serve on the technical and steering committees, specifically the Federal Ministry of Justice, the Nigerian Police Force, the Economic and Financial Crime Commission, and the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission. We thank you so much for your contribution and input to the successful outcome of this 2023 round of the survey. Permit me to also sincerely appreciate the UNODC and the MacArthur Foundation for the technical and financial support provided for the conduct of the survey in Nigeria. Your unwavering support has been vital in making this survey a successful one. We look forward to further collaboration and partnership in other areas of our data production. At this point, while waiting for us to see a short or brief synopsis of the result of the survey, I want to thank all of you for your kind attention and wish all of us a very successful event today. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you so much, the Statistician General of the Federation. Honorable Minister and ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to invite two more personalities who will be making comments on the presentation of the anti-corruption report. At this time, may we please have the Deputy Country Representative of the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crimes, Mr. Danilo Campisi. And I've been instructed to allot 5 minutes to this presentation. Mr. Campisi, you're welcome. A round of applause, please.
His Excellency the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Prince Latif Fagbemi SAN, the Chairman ICPC, Dr. Musa Adamo Aliju SAN, the Chairman EFCC, Mr. Ola Olukoyede, the Statistician General, CEO of the National Bureau of Statistics of the Federation, Prince Adeyemi Adeniran, Dr. Kole Shetima, head of the MacArthur Foundation, other head of agencies, allow me to stand on the existing protocol. Good morning, everyone. It is my distinct pleasure to join you in the celebration of the 2024 Anti-Corruption Day and the launch of this important survey that showcases the progresses made by Nigeria in its anti-corruption efforts and initiatives. Let me start by saying that Nigeria continues to demonstrate its commitment to its anti-corruption efforts in various ways, from making it a priority in the government's renewed hope agenda to its demonstrated progress towards the implementation of the provision of the UN Convention Against Corruption, including by adopting the Proceeds of Crime Recovery and Management Act, the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, and other legal frameworks to combat and prevent corruption at all levels of governments, local, federal, state level. The progress of any government is often reflected in its citizen experiences and perceptions. That is what the third National Corruption Surveys in Nigeria aims to unveil. The trends and patterns of corruption from citizens' experiences in the existing gaps that still negatively impact the lives of ordinary citizens. Through the third national survey, Nigeria leads in establishing international best practices in the implementation of Article 10 and 61 of UNCAC on public reporting and collection, exchange, and analysis of information on corruption, respectively. This is achieved through the conduct of periodic scientific assessment of corruption and anti-corruption efforts, reinforcing the importance of evidence-based strategies in the journey towards a corruption-free society. As we see from the presentation by the NBS, there is indeed a very positive progress. Firstly, citizens are calling for a change by fighting back. 70% of Nigerians who were asked to pay a bribe refused to do so on at least one occasion. And at least 42% of the respondents refused to pay a bribe because it was the right thing to do. Additionally, the percentage of those who were willing to report incidents of bribery more than doubled from 3.6% in 2019 to 8.6% in 2023. And this is indeed progress. And the previous speaker from NPS, the chairman, and the statistician general mentioned that. Secondly, the government is listening by improving its processes. And we are beginning to see results from the efforts they are making. For example, the rate of those who experience negative consequences when refusing the payment of a bribe reduced significantly from 49% in 2019 to 38% in 2023. Willingness to report can also be attributed to greater accessibility to complaint channels, as well as increased readiness of institutions to take such complaints seriously and to initiate a formal procedure. As revealed, the share of bribery reports that led to the initiation of a formal procedure against public officials increased nearly threefold between 2019 and 2023, from 16 to 45%, while the share of those who experienced no follow-up after reporting reduced from 34% to 17%. Again, this is great progress. Therefore, I believe that we should all be proud and congratulate the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people for this milestone. So, as mentioned by the statistician general, what's next was the way forward. So while we celebrate progress, it is crucial not to ignore the gaps and challenges that are still out there and require more work by everyone. I would like to emphasize that countering corruption is a common fight, not just a government effort. In this regard, I encourage all partners present here today to reflect and see to what extent we can all do our part and begin to implement the policy recommendation from the survey. I will mention just three critical ones. The first one, focus on what matters to citizens. Prioritize corruption prevention and enforcement efforts on those types of institutions and public officials most relevant and present in the lives of ordinary citizens. Most Nigerians predominantly interact with 5 types of public officials: doctors, nurses, and midwives, public utility officers, police officers, teachers and lecturers, and other health workers. So it is important and beneficial to focus where it matters most and is likely to have greatest relative impact on the common man. 2, empower citizens, encourage positive behavioral changes and attitudes. These can be achieved through targeted campaigns rewarding honest citizens as well as honest public officials, and continuing to report on example of courage and determination. Such campaigns need to target, among others, the tech-savvy youth who have shown the most significant increases in terms of their readiness to refuse requests for bribes. At the same time, address complaints of any retaliation towards citizens in a very visible way to serve as a deterrent to others. 3rd, promote gender equality, women empowerment, and social inclusion. Anti-corruption and good governance policies need to pay greater attention to the differences that exist and persist in the experiences of men and women when faced with corruption. It is clear from the result of the last 2 surveys that significant differences persist in the experiences of women and men when faced with corruption. For example, that sexual corruption remains a challenge that needs to be addressed. Additionally, people with disabilities are as likely as everyone else to be approached for the payment of bribes. Yet, having to pay bribes when accessing public services is likely to place a far greater burden on people with disabilities. Therefore, anti-corruption measures need to take into account the particular conditions and needs of vulnerable groups of people. The inclusion of public sector entities representing the interests and needs of these groups is essential in creating more awareness an increased understanding of the underlying vulnerabilities that exist for marginalized groups in the anti-corruption sector. I would like to conclude by saying that the perception of corruption is important, but perception does not always coincide with reality. Perception measures how a country public sector is perceived to be corrupt, and is definitely an element to take into account. However, effort to prevent and combat corruption should be driven by scientific research and data to understand challenges, gaps, and patterns to inform effective preventive strategies, helping to preempt, mitigate, and react to corruptive practices and behavior. The survey goes in this direction and shows the firm and concrete commitment of the Nigerian government to address corruption to ensure a better society for all Nigerians. And once again, I'd like to applaud the government for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I can assure you that when the MBS and the UNODC work together, they cannot be faulted. I have an experience with them in 2016. Now, in concluding the comments on the National Corruption Survey, I will be calling on the last presenter. Before then, the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice has a critical national assignment that he is carrying on at the very moment. So we cannot thank him enough for taking time to honor this program. So immediately after the last comment on the corruption survey, the Honorable Minister will be delivering his keynote. So get set, and newsmen, just get set for what is coming. So at this time, please, let us welcome the comrade himself, Dr. Kole Shetima, who is the country director of the Makato Foundation. A round of applause.
The Attorney General of the Federation, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, people massacre my name all the time. My name is Kole Shetima. In light of all the other engagements that we have by the Attorney General, and I've already spoken earlier on, I don't think I would like to take much of your time, but just to say thank you very much to NBS. Thank you very much, UNODC, for all the work that you have done. And I'm also very happy about the results. As I said, I wasn't quite sure what was the investment was going to be, but I'm happy to hear that I think the country has made significant progress on a number of fronts. And I think there are a number of recommendations and excellent recommendations that have come out of the report. And I hope that we can build on the report to make the next survey even much, much better than what we have this time. Thank you very much.
If some persons are recognized after the Honorable Minister has left, I'm not sure they'll be happy. Therefore, Mrs. Victoria Ojugbane, Director of PRS of the Ministry of Justice, you are recognized. You're welcome. And accompanying the Chairman of ICPC, Barrister Henry Amore, Director of Legal Services, you're welcome. And Barrister Shehu Yahaya, Director of Operations, ICPC, you're also welcome. We acknowledged in recognition of the presence of Dr. Fawali, BA, Director Audit and PR Department, representing the Auditor General of the Federation. You're also welcome. Please, a round of applause for all of them. And we've come to the high points of today's meeting. We have several high points, and you better not miss the presentation of the paper by the Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, members of the service table, let's put our hands together as we welcome the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, to present his keynote address at the African Anti-Corruption Day. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you. the chairman of this August occasion. Since I was not here when the protocol was established, and because we live by history and precedents, I would like to adopt the protocol which has been established before I took this stand. Let me particularly recognize the chairman of ICPC and additionally the chairman of EFCC, who happens to be the chairman of this occasion. Members of this side of the divide, the development partners, UNODP, the Makoto Foundation, my colleagues from the Federal Ministry of Justice, my friends from both the ICPC and EFCC. I'd like to say that it is my pleasure to be here today at this commemorative event of the African Anti-Corruption Day 2024 to deliver this keynote address. The 11th of July is a day set aside by the African Union to raise awareness and restate commitment to the fight against corruption. The theme of this year's commemoration, if that is effective whistleblower protection mechanism, a critical tool in the fight against corruption, unquote, underscores the important role of whistleblowers in preventing and combating corruption. Nigeria has a whistleblowing policy in 2016 that encourages people to voluntarily disclose information about any form of corruption or theft. The policy goes a step further to provide for reward and protection of the whistleblower. There have, however, been calls for strengthening the policy with a law that protects more the whistleblowers. In this regard, we must collaborate with the legislature to ensure that this law is passed. Whistleblowing is a key tool to detect corruption and other forms of wrongdoing. It is also employed to stem or discourage corruption. Thus, a whistleblower may be generally described as a person who reports wrongdoing or other social vices in the public interest to a person who can effect action. Whistleblowers are at greater risk of negative consequences for information given confidentially if known to the persons affected. Owing to the substantial benefits to the parties involved in corruption and the serious threat of criminal and other punishments to which these parties are exposed, persons who report these corrupt activities can put themselves, family members, and colleagues at risk. Instead of admitting to corruption and mending their ways, persons implicated in corruption can choose to attack or retaliate, and oftentimes this is what happens. In view of this, whistleblower protection is crucial for the success of anti-corruption detection, enforcement, and prevention and enforcement, and should be a key aspect of any whistleblowing policy. Whistleblowing is a tool used in combating corruption to encourage reporting of misconduct, fraud and corruption, decrease in corruption risk, increase detection of corruption, create a more accountable workplace, and it assists authorities in monitoring compliance with anti-corruption laws. The need to protect whistleblowers was brought into the forefront or front burner
after the implementation in 2016 of the Nigerian stopgap policy on whistleblowing, leading to the Whistleblowing Protection Bill proposed in 2019, a legislation that seeks to provide wider protection for whistleblowers. The bill is still pending before the National Assembly, and all hands must be on deck to ensure the speedy passage of the bill to strengthen and enable protection of whistleblowers that provide information for use by government or any of its agencies. Effective whistleblowing mechanism can be used to curb corruption in the area of fraud, money laundering, terrorism financing, breach of international sanctions, inappropriate use of company resources, conflict of interest, insider trading, infractions to competition and antitrust laws, infringement of personal data protection laws, harassment and discrimination in the workplace. The challenge being faced by whistleblowers are insufficient knowledge of law, fear of reprisal, lack of meaningful implementation of the law, confidential or loyalty provisions, cultural / historic barriers, among others. In ensuring an effective whistleblowing mechanism is put in place to tackle corruption, it is mandatory or very key for government to put in place an effective law to protect whistleblowers from risk, and also educate and create awareness on the rules and procedures of whistleblowing, and also to create an organizational culture of transparency that supports whistleblowing. I am of the view that establishing an effective reporting system which protects whistleblowers should be organized as a key measure to detect, should be recognized as a key measure to detect whistleblowing at an early stage. In our quest to tackle corruption, recipients tasked to respond to whistleblowers' concerns must therefore protect the identity of persons who made reports, and organizations should protect whistleblowers from unjustified treatment. Let me also state that by introducing a comprehensive stand-alone whistleblower protection law, cases of corruption and other related offenses can be detected early, which will consequently reduce the harmful effect of corruption in the country. These commemorative events is taking place at a critical time when Nigeria has just commenced implementation of the second phase of National Anti-Corruption Strategy 2022 to 2026 and its action plan. The National Anti-Corruption and Strategy is part of government's ongoing efforts to prevent and combat corruption and strengthen good governance across all sectors at both the national and subnational levels. The National Anti-Corruption Strategy provides a holistic, collaborative, and coordinated to the fight against corruption and seeks to develop and implement mechanisms aimed at improving governance of public institutions at the federal, states, and local governments by combating corruption-related factors inhibiting government capacity to deliver quality service or services to Nigerians. My ministry, working with key stakeholders, is in the process of finalizing the Action Plan 2020-2026, which will be launched and operationalized shortly. The National Anti-Corruption Strategy Plan lays out the actions and tasks to be undertaken, timelines, and responsible bodies or agencies. We have also been working hard to put in place the necessary structures for implementation of the strategy, establishment and inauguration of interministerial committees, development of anti-corruption funding framework, and strengthening of NACS Secretariat under my office. The adoption and implementation of this strategy is one of Nigeria's treaty obligations under the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. Nigeria signed up to this convention in 2023 and ratified same in 2024. The fight against corruption is gaining more traction by the present administration. The present administration is planning a review and amendment of the Procurement Act to block the loopholes for persons who facilitate corruption. A lot of mechanisms have been developed to ensure that corruption gaps in the MDAs are blocked. Furthermore, government has put in place guidelines and regulations to ensure budget provisions are adhered to strictly and supervisory roles enhanced. The launch of the report of the third corruption survey undertaken by the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, otherwise known as UNODC, in collaboration with Nigeria Bureau of Statistics on this day, is remarkable in keeping with aspirations of government. This is because the findings discussed here today will show what efforts have been done in establishing the whistleblower mechanism with the use of technology. I'm happy to note that the report highlights the confidence in government by citizens who are now more willing to report cases of corruption and refuse bribes. The government has made several of such investments in technology to ensure greater transparency and accountability. This shows this government's commitment in the fight against corruption. Much as I appreciate the efforts of development partners in joining hands with us, let me note or say that the survey conclusion appears to be premised on a preconceived notion that public officials are corrupt. So the lesser the contact with public officers, the lower the corruption index. Surely, this conclusion cannot be said to be absolutely true. The conclusion takes away from the professionalism of the public service and the impact of key government reforms and initiatives of government like the Federal Civil Service Strategy and Implementation Plan 2021-2025, its enablers and core values. We are on the same page with development partners that corruption is a cankerworm that should be treated or removed as much as possible. And although it is not the exclusive preserve of any nation, let me say that completely locating the issue of corruption within the public service, which has a population of less than 2 million or 3, or let me put it at its highest, 5, cannot or requires that certain statistics of the report to be launched today should be reconsidered. When the report is launched, we will also react to it. But let me thank the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan that has identified key laws, policies, and structures that need to be strengthened. The corruption survey has also made key suggestions, which will be adequately considered. I therefore call on all agencies of government to ensure the collective and proactive implementation of the roles assigned to the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan. Additionally, the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan gives an entry point to all sectors and the
National Corruption Survey in Nigeria. The operational words of "I hereby launch" can only be said by the Honorable Minister himself. Now, it's important that we all remain seated as members of the service table, accompany the corruption survey. And now, don't forget that immediately after that, the Honorable Minister will be proceeding to the and his delegate be moving at that time. So at this time, with a round of applause, let's thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, even if it's not a football. Honorable Minister proceeds. Let it unveil that the pack of the launching, and then he can hold a picture. I mean, hold a copy for the press. A round of applause as the Honorable Minister leaves, and we hope he obliges us. A round of applause for the Honorable Minister. He has insisted. All right. Now, please, everyone should remain seated as the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is about to make the lead presentation. And although the door should be closed immediately after the Honorable Minister leaves.
The chairman will launch alongside all the heads of.
Great, great. The new instruction is that I didn't quite get it. Like I said, every misnomer, you can hold me responsible. The Honorable Attorney General has actually delegated such functions to the chairman of the ICPC. So this time around, let's welcome the ICPC chairman along with the members of the service table. Please, it's important we all remain seated because the EFCC chairman will be proceeding from the launch to the podium to deliver his lead paper. So at this time, please, let's welcome the members of the service table along with the chairman of the ICPC for the launch. Yes. A round of applause. Don't you know how to share people? Especially the ones that are working very hard. I wonder whether they will share you like that. Come on, a round of applause. A very resounding one. It is not easy. Please, the security men should ensure that door is shut. And everyone remains seated. It's a photo opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, you might have to hold it up for the world to see, to recognize the hard work that has been put in by the National Bureau of Statistics, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, the MacArthur Foundation, and the European Union Rollout Program. We will expect that the protocol of the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission will accompany him with his lead paper to the podium at this time. Let's put our hands together upon the launch of the third National Corruption Survey. It's a milestone.
Honorable Chairman, it's your turn. It's your turn. A round of applause for the EFCC Chairman as he presents his lead paper. You may quickly realign. President, just quickly realign and focus on the next most important thing. Honorable Chairman, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
The Honorable Attorney General of the Federation in absentia, the representative of UNODC are present, the head of TUGA, Madam Jane, the head of MacArthur Foundation in Nigeria, Mr. Kole Shetima, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Bureau of Statistics, Chair of ICBC, my good friend and my brother, the Deputy Control Representative of UNODC Office in Nigeria, Program Manager of ROLAC, my good friend Dr. Uche, all head of anti-corruption agencies here present, head of other agencies also here present, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is my indeed a great pleasure to stand before you and a privilege and honor to be part of stakeholders to mark the African Anti-Corruption Day, and more importantly, to be invited as a guest speaker. This year's theme, Effective Whistleblowers Protection Mechanism, a critical tool in the fight against corruption, has been carefully selected to address challenges associated with whistleblowing as an instrument for fighting corruption with a view to enhancing its effectiveness. I have specifically been asked to speak on the impact of whistleblowing policy on public sector accountability and transparency. We cannot determine the impact of whistleblowing on public sector accountability and transparency without an understanding of what whistleblowing entails. Simply put, whistleblowing entails wrongdoings, exposing wrongdoings, which is an act of releasing information about things, activities, actions that are against established norms and laws. Wrongdoings, when applied to the public sector particularly, encompasses all acts of illegality or dishonesty that undermines public trust. And I keep saying this all the time. Recently, I had the opportunity of inviting an ex-minister to the office for an interview. And all what the minister was saying is, look, this is a witch hunt, this is, and I said, no. As a public officer, the day you are invited or appointed to an office, you are holding a position as a public officer or a position of trust, you must know that the day will come when you will be called upon to account for your deeds in the office. And let all public officers note this. Let all those who are holding position of trust note this. And I use myself as an example as well. In holding public office, a day came I was called to account, subjected to investigation. We must also recognize that as public officers holding position of trust on behalf of the public. There are also many instances of dishonest conduct in the private sector that exploit the weaknesses of processes and procedures for private gains. Anyone who takes on the moral gauntlet to expose the illegal and dishonest behaviors that hurt or have the potential to hurt our collective well-being will qualify to be called a whistleblower. By this definition, therefore, the concept of whistleblowing is not new to Nigeria. Most law enforcement agencies have policies on informants, people who provide information about wrongdoings and sometimes get rewarded for their efforts. However, as a deliberate program of government, we can trace whistleblowing way back, particularly to 2016. I'd like to mention that when the administration of the former president came up with an incentivized whistleblowing program, where those who provide information leading to the recovery of looted government funds were offered between 2.5% to 5% of the recovered fund. That was the cross of that policy. The motive was to encourage people with information on looted funds to come forward. Now, it's also important for us to examine the impact of that particular policy. Now, the launch of that policy led to creation of awareness on part of Nigerians, and a lot of people came forward. Some gave very good information that led to recovery of funds, and some came to deceive people just to ensure that you pay back somebody who has offended. I remember a particular case in 2017, I think specifically, around March 2017, when I was chief of staff to the chairman, the then chairman. A young man came forward to give us an expose about where so much, or tens of millions of dollars was tapped somewhere within the FCT here. And we put all machineries in motion for like a week. We mounted surveillance. And we decided to bust the particular property. And lo and behold, we couldn't find anything. So my chairman then said, look, Ola, we are not going to stop at that point because the law also provides that when you provide false information, you will be held to account. So we invited the young man, and upon very deep interrogation and the threat that is going to be prosecuted, we discovered that he decided to pay back somebody who snatched his girlfriend 24 years, before then. And I mean, I'm just giving you what transpired. And that actually helped us to review the process that we adopted then, in order to ensure that we implement that policy in such a way that we will not offend the sensitivities of the people, who will not also violate the law and also respect privacy. At the level of the AFCC, the impact was unprecedented in terms of the quantum of resources which seizure were made possible by whistleblowers' information. Of course, some of us remember what we discovered somewhere in Lagos, the story of $43 million and 27,000 pounds. And some of you also remember the story of $9.8 million as well, which we are still in court. Now, these were some areas where we have been able to make impact, specifically in applying the whistleblowing policy. Now, going forward, 7 years after it was launched, the impact of whistleblowing on public accountability and transparency remains a matter of conjecture. Though we cannot discountenance evidence that the policy at the onset had some restraining effect on perpetrators of grand corruption, the momentum appeared to have been lost. And seriously speaking, corrupt public officials appear to have learned from the mistake of the culprits of the few discoveries recorded to cover their tracks. Now, hardly will you see people keeping such a loot at home anymore. They have devised a new strategy, and we have also uncovered the strategy. I'm not going to expose what we have uncovered to you here, but again, as a way of reforming and reviewing the policy, we are also going to make one or two suggestions. Now, the mindless stealing of public resources in the last 7 years showed that looters are now more daring than ever, and cause to question the efficacy of the whistleblower policy. Now, what went wrong with the policy? Because that's part of the things we need to also review in this gathering. The loss of momentum of this whistleblowing policy is the product of a combination of factors, ranging from policy flaws to implementation hiccups. In the area of policy, stakeholders within the anti-corruption community have faulted the absence of a legal framework, which a lot of the speakers that spoke before me have mentioned. The absence of a whistleblowing protection law, for instance, exposed whistleblowers to victimization and even threat of violent attacks. I remember the particular case of one of the mind-boggling discoveries we made. The whistleblower happened to be a young man who probably wasn't too lettered. And from the day we made that discovery, he came under threat, under serious attack, that we had to relocate him from his house and outside the state where we made the discoveries. At some point, he was living, we had to provide an accommodation for him for like a month. And we even asked him not to use his regular number and all of that stuff. So it became a major challenge for us to manage the protection of whistleblowers because there was no law that specifically empowers us to make certain provisions or make certain arrangements that will protect whistleblowers. So whatever we needed to do, we did it within the limit of our resources then. Now, again, some of these whistleblowers also sometimes unnecessarily expose themselves. The same young man I was talking about, when we recovered the fund, which we did, even when we had not even processed his payment and all of that, I remember on one afternoon he called me. He said, Oga, I think that was about a week after we made the recovery, that he wanted to plead with me that I should go and help him find out how much they sell private jets. I said, look, young man, don't expose yourself unnecessarily. Just wait. The money has not even entered your account. You have not even, so unnecessarily, some of them inadvertently unnecessarily expose themselves. And now we have instances in which public officers who provided also whistleblowing information on corrupt practices in their establishment were sacked or denied promotion by their superiors. Another issue of concern is the bureaucracy around the administration of incentive promised to providers of whistleblowers information. So much controversy has dogged the process to the extent of whistleblowers alleging deliberate denial of their entitlements. One of the cases that we also handled, it took me to practically go and sit at the office of the Minister of Finance to ensure that the reward was paid. For like 3 days, I was in that office and there. I said that this money must be released because the money has been paid to government. And so if you make this promise, you must fulfill it. I was going there practically to ensure that the right thing was done. There are also the issue of ambiguity around the reporting process. Without clear-cut guidelines on reporting channels, including determining agencies to receive the whistleblower information, many will be whistleblowers and left unsure of where to take their information. Now, reviving the policy. Reviewing the lost momentum of the whistleblowing policy calls for radical calibration of the program to address the identified ambiguities and other weaknesses. The starting point for us is to place a legal framework for whistleblowing, including a whistleblower protection policy or protection law, rather. I understand that the bill on whistleblowers protection is before the National Assembly, and we are using this opportunity to call upon the National Assembly to expedite action on that. And it is my hope that this bill, which accommodates measures that cover the gaps in the whistleblower policy, will be given the desired attention and pass expeditiously. Whistleblower protection should be broadened to include protection for insiders in various organs of government who expose wrongdoings from within. Furthermore, the channels for reporting and procedures for the determination of payments of incentives should be streamlined. Our experience in the FCC, the Commission's experience with implementing the policy led to the development of a unique application called the Eagle Eye, which enables individuals to report economic and financial crimes anonymously to the Commission. Information received through this platform have led to the arrest of a number of corrupt persons and the recovery of huge sums of money. The application is currently being upgraded with new features to enhance its effectiveness. Now the way forward. In concluding this presentation, I am of the view that the emphasis on incentives as the driving force of the policy should be revisited. A sustainable whistleblower program should be anchored on a moral foundation in which citizens provide information as a matter of patriotic duty. Yes, incentives can come, but most importantly, we must see it as a patriotic duty, as the duty we owe our nation that when you see something going wrong, you also say something. And that is a song and the message we must take across and drum up to the hearing of our people. Not prepared by desire for pecuniary reward necessarily. Whistleblowing should be organic, not driven by inordinate pecuniary interest. Also, whistleblowing should not be reactionary. We should be more interested in whistleblowing that prevents the stealing of public funds rather than the recovery of funds. Once funds are looted, the entire loot may never be recovered. And even if you are going to recover, statistics have shown and research have shown that you hardly be able to do 50% of it at a very great cost. I'm optimistic that today's discourse will throw up practical measures that will make whistleblowing an effective tool of anti-corruption. And I'd like to call on Nigerians that the time has come together, for us to come together to work. It is a collective responsibility. Dealing with the issue of corruption in our country is a collective responsibility. And I want to plead with particularly the media. And God, my friend is here today. I'm able to catch him here today. From TTN has always been bashing me, bashing us on TV. Even though occasionally encourage us. But today, you'll follow me to my office to share some notes and some of the things we have been able to do over the years. And if you are not able to, if you don't get through with that discussion, you will have to stay with us till tomorrow. For us to this. It's important for us, particularly some of us our opinion, leaders and also commentators in the media, for us to understand the context, within which we need to speak. There are things that we just say out. A lot of people believe in what we say. It is important for us to find out the authenticity of some of these statements we make. The anti-corruption institutions in Nigeria are working. We are working our hearts out. Only a single case does not define the FCC. And I can tell you, everyone who has a case to answer, we appear before the court. Our duty is to do our work diligently and to present our findings and our facts before the court. It is not my responsibility to convict people. So people should not be abusing me all over the place, abusing all our colleagues here for not convicting people. Why I said it's a collective responsibility is the moment we do our work, let us take the fight to the next level. Let us take the fight to those who are supposed to adjudicate over some of these cases and ensure that all of us do the right thing. And let us also know that the moment we take a case out there and present our matter, it is also the duty of Nigerians to follow through some of these matters before the court, and to also ensure that justice is done fairly and is done very well. And I want to tell Nigerians that from our part as EFCC, we will always ensure we do the right thing. We are interested in getting results, and we're also interested in how we get the results. We promise Nigerians that we are going to follow due process. If there are 1 or 2 cases of overzealousness, we are going to deal with it, which we have been doing very seriously and committedly. And I also want to assure Nigerians that with collective responsibility, with doggedness on our part, with focus, we will get there. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
I think the executive chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission.
May I use this opportunity to quickly apologize? If I said any wrong thing on television at this time, I take it back. I didn't intend. And please, not allow me to follow you. I said to deal with this
alumni of the University of Benin. I'm sure he will show me more mercy. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I quickly apologize to the chairman because something happened in 2016 when the UNODC and the National Bureau of Statistics jointly published the first corruption perception survey, which ranked the Nigerian police as the most corrupt public institution in Nigeria, followed by the judiciary. As a practicing lawyer who has a lot of respect for judges, I was fuming, angry, hitting the wall in my office, I was protesting in the media against the NBS. I took my pen, I took my computer, wrote a letter of protest to the NBS, demanding and saying, this is unfair. At that time, interestingly, the present Statistician General for the Federation was the one that supervised that the conduct of that perception survey. Well, I needed to say this in a minute, I'll be done. And when he demanded, he answered me. They simply packed all the reports, all the indices and everything by which they came to such conclusion, and they sent their official and brought all of them to my office. When I saw it, I quickly wrote a letter of apology. And since then, in all my public commentary on radio and television, I have been citing such reports and with so much authority. That's why I believe the UNODC and MBS working together cannot be faulted. So please, I don't have to write a letter to the EFCC. I am begging the chairman now, please, I am sorry, please, I'm very sorry. So please, then prepare your questions for the EFCC chairman. He has made a very strong and insightful presentation. We have another short presentation and the questions will be taken. One question, for example, is as a lawyer, if somebody comes to you and say, I want to register a company, and you ask the person, what do you do? You say, I'm a whistleblower. And what is the purpose of the company whistleblowing? What would you do? So at this time, let us welcome Mr. Ashley Emenike, the Executive Director of GOPAC, to present the paper, Whistleblowers Bill, Challenges and the Way Forward. He's presenting the paper for 15 minutes, and I hope he does that. I've taken 1 minute, I apologize, sir. A round of applause for Mr. Emenike.
Thank you very much, members of the high tables and stable and distinguished participants. I'm here to give you the current situation with the legislations to do with whistleblower and whistleblower protection. But I would like to make a small intervention on defining whistleblower and the protection of the whistleblower and also the protection of a witness. So in the National Assembly where I work, there is a whistleblower of public interest disclosure legislation that that's being worked on, and there's also the Witness Protection Act and a bill that is also being worked on. The bill to handle whistleblowing or public interest disclosure was passed by the Senate in the last assembly because in the trying not to create new agencies and not to overburden our bureaucracies, we decided then to expand the mandate of an existing institution called the Public Complaints Commission. And that bill was passed by 2/3 of the senators in the 9th Assembly. But because the Public Complaints Commission is the creation of the Constitution, it had to go to the states for ratification, but that didn't happen before the lapse of the last National Assembly, the 9th Assembly. Then I'll just quickly add the Witness Protection Program was actually passed by both houses, both the Senate and the House of Representatives. But there was a slight omission, which I will bring up, that made it to be held back. Now, Public Complaints Commission Act, we try to amend that, amend Section 5 to include the powers to receive and investigate public interest disclosures and protect whistleblowers from victimization, and then enter into arrangements with other persons, bodies, or organizations. And Section 10 was also amended to include immunity of public interest disclosures and to protect them from criminal and civil liabilities. Of course, the reason for this was justified in the lead debates then that this was required by the Article 33 of UNCAC, which states, and I quote, each state party shall consider establishing in accordance with domestic laws a system of protecting witnesses and whistleblowers. And of course, the African Union Convention also states the same thing. And that was the justification why the National Assembly, the last assembly, and even this assembly is taking it serious. And I'll inform you that these bills are undergoing legislative processes as I speak. Now, what are the key provisions of the amendment of the Public Complaints Commission? It was basically to mandate it to receive public interest disclosures as well as a whistleblowing protection for those who are making those disclosures and have other objectives. Of course, we know the normal role of the Public Complaints Commission was to, in this new amendment, was to enable them to manage public interest disclosures, monitor public interest disclosures and complaints, and then, of course, engage in advocacy, educational, and advisory, and then to actually determine the nature of protection a whistleblower would require. Now, a person who makes public interest disclosure, if they are believed to be on reasonable grounds, it could be made orally, and it could be made in writing or any other method prescribed by the chairman or the Commission of the Public Complaints Commission. And then that same act, the amendment, which is still being undergoing legislative process, makes provisions for the immunity for somebody who is making a public interest disclosure. And then the person who threatens or tries to put the life of a discloser at stake, it has committed an offense by the amendment and would probably be penalized up to 500,000 naira or 2 years imprisonment, not exceeding, or both. And then we'll have remedies for acts of victimization. A person who takes or threatens to take a detrimental action against anyone who's making a public interest disclosure, so reliable and may be required to pay compensation to the victims. And of course, there was also a provision for duty of secrecy and confidentiality, and breach of that also led to a penalty of 500,000 naira or 2 years imprisonment or both. And then in conclusion of this amendment, which we worked on and are still working on now, as you are aware, the National Assembly is also going through the rounds of amending the Constitution, and this bill is also one of those that will be considered. As it goes, it will pass through the Senate and then through the House, and then forwarded to the Constitutional Amendment Committee to the states. And then we know that this necessary step must be taken if we're to meet our international obligations and to show that the country is indeed ready to fight corruption and also empower the law enforcement agencies and the anti-corruption agencies to do their work and be obliged or availed with the services of whistleblowers. Now, I'll quickly go over to the one on witness protection. Now, witness protection, I said, was passed by the last assembly, but something was observed. Many of you may know the NFIU Act. It's up for amendment because in a hurry to meet it up, there were key elements of the act that were omitted. And this was spotted, the same thing with Witness Protection and Management Act 2022, which was passed by both houses. While it was being cleaned up to go for assent by the CNC, it was noticed that one key provision was missing, and I'll come to that. But the objectives of the Witness Protection Act, I quickly run through that, is to establish a legal and institutional framework to protect witnesses and related persons, and to ensure effective use and nationwide supervision of witness protection officers, and of course, harmonize existing laws and policies on witness protection and management. Now, like in the last assembly, the Proceeds of Crime Act, which was put in place, did not create a new agency, but established a framework for those seizing entities to manage how they handle proceeds of crime. This is the same thing as happened in the Witness Protection Act. There are those who are relevant authorities who would have need to protect witnesses. This framework is basically meant for them to use in that protection of witnesses. And the application of this is to investigate, given the power to investigate and prosecute offenses related to terrorism, money laundering, and also applies to all the justice sector institutions and authorities. Meaning of a witness. Basically, it's a person who has information about the commission of an offense or wrongdoing and has given or is given or agreed to give evidence on behalf of the state, and includes persons who have made statements to law enforcement officers or are required to give evidence in a prosecution or inquiry held outside Nigeria. So in establishment of the Witness Protection and Management Program, a relevant agency is then required to establish a Witness Protection and Management Program to provide for the safety and welfare of witnesses. And then the program is to also include a department or unit or a procedure to determine the criteria for admission to and removal from the program and other necessary actions. The key provisions of this Witness Protection Act is one, it offers temporary protection. It also helps in assessing witnesses for inclusion in the program, and inclusion in the program, which also requires protection, a protection agreement, protection of a minor, termination of protection, and review by the relevant agencies. Protecting witnesses from identification is one. You have to, first of all, it includes identifying documents, application for court order protecting witness identity, effect of court order protecting witness identity, and cancellation of entry in the register. And witness protection officers and deployments had a specific duty, which was number one, to protect the witnesses, and then they are deployed to the various branches of the protecting institution. And then they also are supposed to have the requisite training to carry out witness protection. And then now the protected witness has certain rights and the obligations owed that witness by government. One is witness should have a right to protection, safety, and welfare. And then witnesses shall have obligations to cooperate with the relevant agency and as well testify in court. And then by this act, we also established a Witness Protection Fund. Now, establishment and sources of the Witness Protection Fund will require, of course, application of money in the Protection Fund, and of course, establishment of the Witness Protection Council. Now, this is where this is what caused this thing to be delayed in the last assembly. Provision was made. There's a mention of a Witness Protection Council, but during the report stage, the actual provision of the council. This is the council, these are the members, and this is how the operate was omitted. And it was just too large a section of the act to be let's just fix that. So that stopped the whole process. Now, what are the offenses and penalties, like the PFCC chairman just alluded to? Is this false? It's an offense to have to deliver a false or misleading disclosure. Offenses relating to disclosure concerning participants, and there is prohibition of false representation, and offenses in connection with employees of the relevant agencies. Of course, there are other miscellaneous provisions like legal proceedings, non-compellability of witnesses, restriction on execution against property of the relevant agency, and indemnity of officers of the relevant agencies. And in conclusion, Witness Protection and Management Act, which is now 2023, which came up last year, 2023, provides a framework for the support, management, and protection of witnesses in criminal and related procedures. So now what is the way forward? Of course, the civil society has a very key role. The advocacies they conduct, without it, sometimes it helps to to allow governments to take things seriously. If there's an area of our world that is taking seriously, that the civil society organizations, like what we're doing today, without CSOs, will not be able to do it. The advocacies they play, not just the general public, but advocacies they play within the corridors of power, within the National Assembly, even within the executive and judiciary are crucial. And it is important that we keep our eyes on the ball. And from this place, I will assure you that these two bills I've just highlighted are bills before the National Assembly, being sponsored by Senator Barnada and Piggy, and we have listed them, and in a very short time, we will go to public hearing. And for the only concern I would have now is the rigorous nature of having a constitutional amendment. So there's a school of thought that is saying the whistleblower policy, the whistleblower law should be a framework, and then to identify who can implement a relevant agency, not necessarily having it as a mandate expansion of the Public Complaints Commission. On that note, I want to thank you for your attention, and all information you need and always available. Thank you very much.
And finally, we are here. Thank you so much, Mr. Emenike, for that erudite and well-researched paper. I'm sure you have your questions ready. Before we go on, in fact, we cannot go on without first acknowledging the presence of Madam Lillian Ekenyawu. Madam Ekenyawu was or rather is the immediate past head of the Technical Unit on Governance and Anti-Corruption Reforms. Madam, are you around? A round of applause. Great, great, great. Now, you can see that the foundation of the good work, the foundation that we laid has yielded this progress we have achieved today. Now, we will take questions in one row and expect the executive chairman of the EFCC, who I believe is giving some media attention, giving some media attention to newsmen. It's okay. So at this time, we will take a number of questions and expect that Mr. Ashley Emenike will be able to do justice to those questions. Can you signify by raising your hand? You will have to. Please, where is the other microphone? Yes, any questions? I raised the question earlier about which is something I thought the chairman would have been in a good position to answer. If someone comes to you and says, I'm a whistleblower and I want to incorporate a firm, and the sole purpose of the firm is whistleblowing, what will be your response? Is whistleblowing a profession? I'm happy that I like the research dimension that Mr. Emenike took to his presentation by delving into looking at the various provisions, the possibilities and the interactions with different laws that exist and the ones that we're expecting, like the Proceeds of Crime Act and other forms of amendments that are possible. So is that a possibility? So you may please take that. I used to incorporate companies in my younger days as a practitioner, and I thought in my own mind, I would be a bit scared to say someone asking me to do that. So are there any other questions? There must be take home from these presentations that have been made today. So we don't expect that you have received without a response. So do I see any hand up? Great, great. Yes, that's number one. Who else? You, please, Director, do they come to the front or they stay where they are? Yes, okay, great. So you may please stand up, introduce yourself, and then address your question. All right.
Morning, everybody. I started on the executive, already establishment of the National Human Rights Commission. I want to thank you presenters for your very detailed and enlightening presentation. My question is simply this. Now, at the beginning of this administration, the president had a responsibility, saddle the ministers with some responsibility. It's called the performance, I guess someone help me please, performance, performance, just to hold them up, hold them accountable. However, now it has cascaded down to various ministries, between the chief executives and now the directors, and we are all mandated establishments to create, as far as actually is concerned, to create and each agency's whistleblower policy. Now, the policy has not been, there's no acts in place now. So to what extent are we supposed to develop this policy? Because my organization is in the process of developing one. We just want to know, understand and know the scope of this document so that we'll be quoting accurately in our content, the content of this handbook. So I need lots of clarifications on this, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you on that. So as Mr. Emenike takes that question, could he also consider what was once a buzzword under the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari, that made whistleblowing quite a lucrative business? So when I was talking about incorporation, I had that in mind. Lucrative business in the sense that a certain percentage was set by the then Presidential Initiative on Continuous Audit. Is an office in the presidency at that time, which helped to implement the possibility of being paid 5%, not more than 5% of whatever that a whistleblower contributed to recovery. Should whistleblowing be incentivized? So, Mr. Emenike, you may do justice to this question for now. Why seated? Please.
Thank you very much.
Oh, why is he young?
The process of lobbying is the same way you make policies. You have to take everyone's view. You have to look at those who are going to implement those policies. You have to look at the impacted people or impacted sector of these policies. So as you're going ahead to make your policies on this, I think we should just go ahead. Right now, the framework was not in place. The world plan has not yet been seen. In fact, the last administration actually, there was a significant communication from the president, President, to the legislations that we work on these legislations and that. But because of the routes, it was held back. So go ahead and when the law got already deal with the process of public hearing, you can now form this for your submission for the committee to look at and incorporate if they are useful and necessary, and something that can be applied across the board in this witness protection, whistleblower protection, and which I think is important And thirdly, and I should notice a lot of agencies are publishing anti-corruption policies. And you might see one or two from anti-corruption and then our very, very capable MC. You know, the very dangerous thing to say about the whistleblowing, but incentivizing whistleblowing is challenging. So, and then they ask themselves, if the strategy is working, you sometimes think and say, no, it's also missing. It's already there to do that. And if you see the wrong, that is not a bad thing. And in fact, the agencies themselves are also incentivized by existing legislations where they are allowed to set back a certain amount from the profits. So there's something on that we have to go and register. I don't think we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will take Mr. Eminike will be answering the final round of questions. We will take, now you are number one. Is there any other hand? From the service table. That must be a very difficult question. It's okay. So are we closing with those two questions? So Martin, please.
My name is Mr. Whistleblowing anti-corruption reporting network. The MC asked the question whether it's possible to register a whistleblower and say yes, we've done that. My question is to the anti-corruption, the ICBC and the EFCC channel. I think they just work. Every year we celebrate Anti-Corruption Day. This is the second African Anti-Corruption Day. And each occasion, we are always told that the whistleblowing bill is the national assembly. My question is, what are we doing to make each national assembly accept to this, pass this whistleblowing bill? Thank you.
Thank you. Please, quickly to the high table.
I'm going to do collaboration, asking this question from the service table. But mine is not necessarily a question, it's more of the issue, especially in the light of submissions already made. And thank you, Ogashi, for the excellent job that you pushing this forward. And to my sister from the National Commission, I just asked a very our question. I understand basically says we go ahead and put in place a policy of whistleblowing when there is no substantive law in the country backing that up. And the response, in addition to what everything I've said, is did you need a law to put your mission statements and your value statements in place? We're talking about a policy, it's your organizational policy. And if you have a value that says transparency and accountability is a key value for your organization, there is absolutely nothing wrong in putting in place a policy that helps your organization remain true and transparent to what it is that you believe in. And that's your value system. So there are organizational values, and it's a policy, even without COCA, without the Inclusive of Crime Act, we have a policy that's established the Asset Recovery Management Unit. We can do things right, and we have the best of laws, and people who are not sincere and committed drive those laws to still get nowhere. But even the bad laws, if we have the good hearts and well intended, we will get somewhere. I think is what that can be done. Thank you very much.
A round of applause. Okay, please remind me your name, sir. Okay, what you registered is an NGO that is under Part C, that is incorporated trustee. Yeah, what I had in mind, for example, I have a law firm, I registered it as a lawyer. Can I register my firm, a business name, as a whistleblower? I think Mr. Ashley Emenike has dealt with it. For you, of course, you are another. So, Mr. Emenike, I'm sure you will do justice to this last round of questions, and then we'll come to the end of the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a lot of paper. Because the big difference between many people and the Lord is not competition, you are not the people and for the service in mind. What you say is you want to be a public, and I don't see any law stopping you from making trouble, because the risks are different. And let's just say this of a few truths. There are people who are already doing that. People who are organizing themselves to go and preach and test. They don't come forward to the government to say, practice or not practice somewhere. They might go and engage with people directly and what is the place, but also something that we can plan. And what is National Assembly doing? And I only want to apologize for this asked me about assembly. But what we can is very interesting. And one day I'm making this, if there are hundreds of bills, each looking for that 3 positions and all that data, each looking for public hearings on being people, go to the press, files in the daily, spend their money. But I'm sure you can, in the last assembly, I will finally understand this as an expression. I think have been part of passing the Money Laundering Prohibition Act, Process of Crime Act, as well as the Prevention Act, without the help of the EFCC, without the help of the UNODC, without the help of all the anti-corruption agencies, we were spending days and nights, and of course, their heads with fantastic hypocrisy. So that I believe moving forward, I commit to pushing this legislation forward. I want to inform you there are several laws. Any lawmaker can come up with a bill. Okay, and just be one line, 10 lines, 7 clauses. But what we're going to decide to do now is to get all of them together and then have a 2-day legislative discussion, more or less, let's have a conversation. So we know ahead of time that this is where we're going to go, but I can assure you, we will put everything behind this to ensure that before the end of this we'll have a very rigorous and very strong whistleblower framework in place that we can all be part of, and as well the strong witness protection that we not only do it easiest to do because it's just enough to create the provisions of the council. And like we said, the strategy is not to create new agencies, but allow existing agencies to expand their mandates and empower them. That's what happened in the last assembly. We did not go towards creating the money laundering control bureau. Rather, we stopped with having school inside the EFCC. We did not go to create the Process of Crime Management Agency. We made the law to allow all citizen entities to establish asset recovery management departments. That's the same process, the same thinking. Knowing that the worry about burden and bureaucracy is too big, you can't carry it. So I'm speaking, trying to review nationalize the faculty. There's a need for the executive other arms to engage national assembly is not an executive effort. This national assembly effort that will review, repeal, remand, amend these agencies or institutions. So I'm sure that this will not again. Thank you very much.
All right. I think, yes, I think Mr. Minike deserves that round of applause. Unfortunately, his job is not yet finished. We omitted the online audience that they have been following us since the start. And we have a question from an online participant. I don't have the details, but technical units, can you yield the floor to the participant to ask the question from the online audience? Okay. Godwin, so Godwin, you can ask your question now.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Can you hear me?
Yes, you may introduce your name, yourself fully.
Okay, so I'm Godwin Okpene. I'm sorry, the network here is quite bad, so I'm assuming this is the general question and answer time.
Yes, go ahead with your question.
Okay, so my question is this quickly. You know, we are talking about whistleblower protection and the fact that there is no law in place. And while we are waiting for this law to come on stream, how can we start thinking about how to deal with some of the institutional barriers in terms of existing laws? For instance, like the Official Secret Act, which bound civil servants from divulging official information. And this is ingrained in their consciousness. So it's very difficult for me to begin to think differently as a civil servant if I'm not falling foul of one law in trying to comply with the other. That's one. Secondly, how can we start thinking creatively in terms of strategy? When this law eventually comes into place, what kind of strategy, communication strategy we have in place to conscientize civil servants on a very large scale about their responsibilities and obligations under the law when it's eventually passed? That's the very quick question I want to ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Godwin. That was a very loaded question. Mr. Minike, you may have to also consider with the enactment of the Freedom of Information Act that repeal the certain sections of the Official Secrets Act. And then you also have to consider that the contemplation, as a researcher yourself, as one doing work in social research, considering the contemplation of the private investigator bill, which can enable private persons to assume roles that were once exclusive to public criminal investigators who work in public institutions like the ICPC, EFCC, and the police. So the floor is yours, Mr. Emenike, as you round up.
Thank you very much, Godwin. Yes, and I quite appreciate your insights. For public servants who of course, not everything you go out, they need to have official secrets. That's absolutely national security. It is, of course, those are in the house. But the freedom of information itself also does protect those official secrets. There are areas you cannot ask for information to national security. There are areas and I'm quite elaborate. So before we want to also right holding on accountable. Both the Freedom of Information Act, find out what of the people, do something they can bring to you, and then as a civil servant or a public officer, when you believe something is wrong, there are moments if the laws are not there, the action is there, the National Anti-Corruption Strategy provisions for public officers, civil servants as well to report. But the only problem we have with that is it was always very difficult for the junior officer who's going to be head of that department to follow that and teach it without any recognition. That tells you that you know that's a problem. You need to put these situations very, very, very quickly. People are going to be in this country. People have not been able to. I think we can do that in fairness.
I think give the final round of applause to Mr. Emenike. And I'm going to call somebody who will do a special congratulations to all of you. You have been a very exciting audience. You just look at you, you are very many staying to the end of the program. And to the service table, they've got national assignments. So this has been a great time. So we have a few announcements. Please listen carefully. And okay, you may switch off the other one. Listen carefully to the following announcements. Please go through the reception. I believe the one at you can go through the reception through the other side and validate your ticket with a copy of your program booklet so that they don't have to charge you commercially for parking. It can be very tumultuous if you go there and they refuse to open the gates because you haven't paid 600 naira for 1 hour. We've stayed here for close to 4 or 5 hours, so you may be requested to pay nearly 6,000 naira if you don't do that. So go through the reception and then just simply show your program booklet and then they will validate your ticket. Then the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime is issuing out QR cards, and I make sure you get them, especially the newsmen, so that to enable you access the report online. Just you can access, just snap it with your smartphone, and then it will take you to the report. And finally, Arise News is inviting any member of the service table to please appear on tonight at News Night, starting from 9 to further emphasize the points and the importance of today's meeting. Having said all of this, and thanking you so much, it is time to invite someone who is part of those who have made the huge sacrifice of making this occasion possible. Please permit me to invite Mr. That's how we call it, Mr. Charles Albana, who is a lawyer and a member of the interagency tax team. You've done a great job. He's going to give us the vote of thanks. A round of applause for Mr. Charles. Please, a better round of applause. They put together a successful meeting, and I'm glad to be part of it. Thank you, Mr. Charles. I didn't know you are such a fine man.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure you would permit me to stand on established protocol. On behalf of the Interagency Task Team, the IATT, that is situated at all, coordinated by TUGA, I want to thank everyone that has made today's event a huge success. The 2024 African Anti-Corruption Day. We are glad, especially with the assistance and the support that the IATT has received from our partners, particularly the European Union, the Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Rollout Program, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, the MacArthur Foundation, and of course the Center for Democracy and Development that have made this day a reality. We thank all the distinguished guests who graced this occasion, heads of agencies, particularly those who deliver technical papers, the chairman of the EFCC, and Mr. Ashley Emenike, who has broken down all the technical details. We thank our online participants for joining this program. We also thank those of us who have had to endure the temperature in the room. I'm sure there are so many who want to run out because of the cold. We have patiently waited till now, and we appreciate you. We thank you very much. So we look forward to having you attend our subsequent programs that the IATT will organize in the course of the year. Thank you very much. God bless you and grant you a safe return to your various offices and homes. We are very grateful. Thank you.